Isn't it interesting how there are no guidelines or prerequisites you have to meet before becoming a parent? We heavily regulate driving abilities, admittance to the military, who can qualify for financial aid for college, yet anyone can become a parent, just like that. And yeah, I understand that it's pretty futile to ask people to stop having kids, but it's still noteworthy because becoming a parent is arguably one of the most important things that you can do with your life. There are big societal problems, sure, like the space race to Mars, but for the typical person, nothing else comes close to the duty of raising a child. It's a massive responsibility, yet so many people just completely bungle it. And while only a fool would simplify the issues of modern society to one reason, I do believe that much of our problems can be sourced to one issue: bad parents. And today I'm going to examine this under three broad topics: enabling, ignoring, and divorce. But before we get to that, I'd like to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. As I've been thinking about this topic of parenting and perhaps reconciling with a less than ideal childhood, I realize that makes a lot of sense in the context of therapy. And anyone that's followed my channel for a while knows that I like to explore big philosophical topics. But you can't always do that alone, which is what BetterHelp is great for. So what is it? BetterHelp essentially offers an online alternative to traditional therapy. You just fill out a questionnaire about what you're looking for and what you hope to get out of it, and you'll be matched with the right therapist. And you can be talking to someone within usually 2 days, which is pretty quick compared to how you normally have to do it. A cumbersome process with paperwork and delays and all that. BetterHelp is far more seamless. And the great thing about it is being online, you can approach sessions however you'd like. Whether that's just a video call or a phone call or even just texting, that's cool too. Whatever you find most comfortable. And if you end up not vibing with your therapist, you can always just switch to someone else at no additional cost. And after all, there's over 30,000 therapists in BetterHelp's network, so I'm sure you'll find the right person for you. So if that sounds good to you, check out the link in the description to get 10% off your first month of therapy. And thank you again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. It's things like this that really help support my journey here on YouTube. All right, let's get back to the video. So I mentioned three topics I want to explore regarding parenting. That is enabling, ignoring, and divorce. So let's start with divorce, just to mix it up, So let me ask you this. Are your parents divorced? About half of everyone will say yes to that, if we're just talking about the stats, which shouldn't really be surprising to anyone. We've heard about divorce rates being crazy for a long time now, but it's normalized. But why? Why is it that it's so normal now for a family to just completely fragment and leave children in a complex situation with step-parents or growing up without one of their actual biological parents? Why? And just to clarify, I'm not saying that all parents who divorce their spouses are bad parents. I'll get to that later. But it seems pretty clear to me that if you grow up without strong parental guidance, or a fractured household, or you grow up with one parent, far less out of the picture, it can really affect you. When my parents split up, I was about 10, I think, maybe 9 or 10. And to be clear up front, I didn't have an absent parent or anything like that. When my parents divorced, they tried to do it in the most painless way possible, staying in the same town. I stayed in the same school. I just went between their houses, so I got to see them both throughout the week. But I cannot tell you how much those years really sucked. Going back and forth, schlepping my clothes in a duffel bag and my schoolwork. Just never really felt settled, right? And eventually, my older sister got tired of doing all that, and she started living full-time with my mom. And that really started getting to me, because now I was the only one putting up with it, back and forth week after week. And eventually, around 12 or 13, I just had enough, and I said I was living with my mom full-time as well. And that helped a lot. I won't say everything was peachy after that, but it definitely helped. So why am I telling you that? Well, I just want to establish a baseline so you know where I'm coming from, because I know so many people also have divorced parents, and to be clear, they had it way worse than me. I know people that had awful step-parents that to this day affect their psyche or confidence. Now here's the thing, I'm not a parent yet, so I have no idea what it's like to raise a child, to balance a marriage, but if I was to look at all the divorce around me, my parents, my friends' parents, all of it, it makes me want to make sure that does not happen to my kids. I want to be absolutely, unequivocally, not a doubt in my mind confident that the woman that I'm going to marry is the right person to be both my wife and the mother to my children. If there's even a sliver of doubt that this person is not the right fit for both of those, and both is very important there, mother and wife, right? Then I will not do it. Because the way that I view it is that getting married and having children is not really about you. I mean, marriage before kids, sure, it's just you and your spouse. But when you decide to become a parent, it's not like oh yeah, let's just have kids, that'd be a fun adventure for us, right? No, you are bringing a human into this world that did not ask to be here, and so at no point should you ever expect them to owe you something or that they should conform to your situation. And this leads me to my next point about ignoring your kids. The other day, I was watching some van life videos. Those videos where people convert a van or a big RV into something aesthetic, like a nice mobile home, right? And I stumbled on some videos where it's a family and they have like 8 kids or something crazy, like 8 people in a car. You've got kids on the floor, kids sleeping in these like super cramped bunks. But yeah, hey, look, mom and dad are sleeping in an actual bed in an actual room with a door and privacy. Forget the kids, right? These parents have decided that they want to have a grand old adventure and that they should take the kids along for the ride while depriving them of, stability, friend circles, normal education. But no, none of that's going to lead to resentment later in life from your kids, right? I mean, I just cannot stand to see these parents who do this to their children, forcing them to conform to their lifestyle because that's what the parents want, all at their kids' expense. And I'm sure not all the kids hate it, but I can't imagine sleeping on the floor for months or years on end is exactly ideal. You can't just ignore what your child needs because you decided to have a certain lifestyle. I've heard of parents trying to justify this argument of, I don't want to work hard or have this certain job or make a lot of money because that will compromise my freedom, right? And I think this is perfectly fine if you're single, by all means, do what you want. But if you have someone else depending on you, you have a child, a kid that needs food and education, maybe they want to go to college someday and, who knows what college will look like in 20 years for cost. You can't just ignore that responsibility. If you don't want that burden, then don't have kids. It's as simple as that. Personally, I do want kids, as does my girlfriend, which is why I do YouTube, because I can't fully rely on my job to cut it. We're not parents yet, but we probably will eventually, so you have to be forward thinking and not just ignore the reality that is coming your way. And you can connect this back to divorce, how parents sacrifice or ignore their children's happiness because they are unhappy themselves, that they might have married the wrong person and they just disrupt the family unit because the marriage just isn't working out. And I'm not saying that my parents are bad parents for divorcing, not at all, but I often wonder what it would have been like to have just a normal family. I was just talking with my girlfriend about this actually, and how both of her parents are still together, and how different her family operates when they all hang out, because it's mom and dad and all the siblings and her. It's one unit. And she likes how strong that bond is. And that sounds great to me. I would love that. Not worrying about like weird family dynamics and who to invite to the Christmas dinner. Just a cohesive family. I understand that families are complicated and people say it's not that easy to stay together or whatever. But that just makes me want to be even more confident that I don't screw it up. Don't marry the wrong person just because it feels right in the moment. Don't settle just because it feels easy. You might eventually have kids with that person, and the kids have absolutely nothing to owe you. Everything is on your shoulders. Parents often wonder why their kids don't like them or why they never call them. Maybe it's because you screwed up raising them. Maybe you weren't always around or as emotionally present as you should have been. Just remember this: it is never your responsibility to make up for your parents' failures. The last thing that I haven't discussed yet is enabling. And what I mean by that is the kind of parents that just spoil their kids rotten. Now look, I am all for giving your kids a good life. My mom got me through college. She took me and my sister on some amazing trips growing up, and that was very helpful in forming my personality, my worldview. But there's a fine line between doing that, giving your kids a good life, and just simply ruining them. I know someone who has quite the wealthy father, and they are well into their 20s with zero career to their name. Just flying around the world, kind of screwing around, considering grad school because, hey, well, haven't found a career yet, so why not just spend more money? And you might be wondering, how could someone possibly afford all that? And while I'm not privy to all the financial details, I know that free rent from daddy for years on end definitely helps. And it's that kind of thing that I just do not understand. Does any parent really think that years of complete and utter support is actually good for their child's growth? What does that do to someone's work ethic, Knowing that if they screw up, they can always just come back and bum around with no end date or ultimatum. And yeah, I recognize that my mom helped me through college and helped pay for a lot of stuff, so pot calls the kettle black there, but come on, man, when you give your child everything, they often come back with nothing. There's no spark, no fire, no motivation when you're just handed everything. You can't enable bad or spoiled behavior and then wonder why your kids just want to lay around and play for the rest of their life. Work ethics are not born on golden thrones. Now here's the thing. I've been talking a lot about divorce and all the bad stuff that can happen, but if there's one message I could think of to fix all this, it would be break the cycle. If you had a dad that wasn't really present, or a mom that was too controlling, you didn't get the love or attention you needed from them, whatever it might be, break the cycle. Do not allow your past to become your future. Do not become the parent that you hated growing up. Because if you never change that, if you never recognize what made you so angry growing up, then you might bring that baggage to your children, and the cycle will continue. So many of the world's problems can be boiled down to bad parenting. I firmly believe that. Often a terrible father will raise a little punk of a son. It makes sense. Behavior is learned. Again, my parents were great, very supportive, but there are things that I grew up with, like divorce, that I want to be sure not to bring to my family. Because I know what it's like. It sucks not to have one strong, cohesive unit for everyone to wake up on Christmas Day and mom and dad are both there. And I don't want my kids to know what that's like. And yeah, I'll recognize I might be singing a different tune 10 years down the line because parenting is hard. There's probably some 40 or 50-year-olds chuckling to all this, like, let's talk in 20 years, right? But I think the least you can do at this age is just start thinking about what you want out of life. That's all you really can do when you're still young. And just give it some thought. Most people probably never even think about this kind of thing. They just say, screw it, and have a kid. I'll figure it out later. This is a very important decision to make, so don't tread lightly. And if you can relate to any of that, you had bad parents, or things that they did that bothered you, just remember, break the cycle. Alright guys, I'll catch you later.